Hey everyone! Boy, do I have a tasty treat for you. Several tasty treats, as a matter of fact. I'm not going to waste any more time than I already plan on wasting in this video. You know the deal by now anyway, after all. You've already watched the first 4 episodes of this series, right? Let's jump right into clarification time, and be warned, it's a big one. In the last video, the mercy rule from Uno Show 'em No Mercy was added, and it was met with a little bit of backlash. The issue was that some of you think the limit of the mercy rule should be increased above 25 for various reasons, which I will be addressing shortly. Now, I should say that most of you were very polite and offered your creative solutions in a productive way, and I'd like to thank you for that. But some of these comments were a bit rude, so I'm just going to talk about this topic for an extended amount of time, just so I can prove these select few people wrong. Yeah, spoiler alert, I don't plan on changing the mercy rule's limit, and I'm actually going to use math to explain why. Now, math has never been my strong suit, but I'm more than willing to do some in this case. Let's take a look at the current deck of the Amalgam. In the Amalgam, there are currently 560 cards that you can draw. Wow, I didn't realize there were that many. There are only 280 physical cards that you can draw, but the back sides of each card have just as much weight due to the flip symbol existing. Now let's take a look at how many guaranteed draw-based symbols there are. The draw 1s through the draw 10s and their slight variants. Looks like there are a total of 86 draw symbols. If you were to theoretically draw the amount of cards required by all 86 of these draw symbols, you'd be drawing 255 cards. Now, if we take that number and divide it by the total number of cards, which is 560 as I previously stated, we can determine that on average you'd be drawing about 0.46 cards per turn, assuming the entire deck was used on you. 0.46 cards per turn doesn't really mean a whole lot unless we have something to compare it to, so now let's do the same math with Uno Show 'em No Mercy. There are 168 cards in No Mercy, and 35 of them have draw-based symbols. If you were to draw the amount of cards required by all of these symbols, you'd be drawing 142 cards. 142 divided by the total number of cards, 168, gives us an average of 0.85 cards per turn. That is almost double what the Amalgam has, so why would I ever increase the mercy rule limit? So many people suggested I increase the number, but I'm not sure if anyone had a reason for the number they chose. I heard 30, 35, 45, 50, and even a really high number like 60. Where are you getting these numbers from? On what basis are you suggesting these numbers? Some comments even had multiple numbers suggested. Like, huh? If you had a real reason to increase the number, you'd only need one number, and you'd know what that number would need to be. If I wanted to implement the mercy mechanic to the same effect it has in Uno No Mercy, I'd have to decrease the number, not add to it. I'm not going to do that though, because I'm trying to stay accurate to the original mechanic, even if it's less effective now. I could leave it right there, but I know that people are going to have their counters to this, so I'm going further. Luke, you forgot about the color roulette cards from No Mercy, and the other cards that don't have set numbers for you to draw in the Amalgam. Evidently not. In Uno Show 'em No Mercy, there are 8 color roulette cards, which, for the sake of argument, basically act the same as the draw color symbol. And in the Amalgam, there is the equivalent of 7, maybe 8 draw color cards, considering most of them are locked behind a 1/8 chance of happening due to the swirly modifier. So potentially there are less draw color symbols in the Amalgam than in No Mercy, and that's not even taking into account the ratio difference. And yes, there are other symbols that don't have a set number of cards for you to draw present in the Amalgam as well. But at the same time, most of these can be avoided or countered, which is part of the strategy of this Amalgam. And you're forgetting to look at the other side of this dynamic, because there are so many ways to get rid of cards in the Amalgam that aren't present in No Mercy. Remember, there are 4 discard piles instead of 1, oftentimes quadrupling your chances of being able to discard. Also, there are more symbols to match, and flex cards make up 50% of the deck, giving you even more options. There are also ways to get rid of more than one card on your turn, like the Patience rule and the Jump In rule, and there are many symbols that help you get rid of more cards, like Wild Number cards and Discard Color cards. So really, I have no idea what your cards per turn statistic is in the Amalgam, but it is certainly much, much lower than in No Mercy. I'm not sure how many of you have actually had the chance to play Uno No Mercy, considering it came out only a month or 2 ago, but I have. Is it really hard to actually win using the original Uno win condition? Yes. Is it impossible? Absolutely not. The game itself sort of encourages you to use the Mercy rule as the main win condition because that's just the nature of the game. Here in the Amalgam, the balance has tipped the other direction due to the ratios of draw-based symbols. But the Mercy rule remains in the situation where you'd actually be able to eliminate people from the game. Even after all of that, if you're still not convinced, then there is yet another solution for you. House rules. Yeah, that's right, I'm going to talk about house rules right now. Once again, I was going to save this until the end of the series so I could do this bit, but whatever. Long story short, house rules are a tool you can use to add even more creative little rules to the Amalgam that aren't necessarily official. But for you, they may make the game more fun, and I encourage you to add whatever you want to the Amalgam via house rules once you have your own copy. This is the definitive and in the rules legal way to add all of the cool ideas you've sent me that sadly won't make it into the Amalgam. House rules can just as easily be used to remove undesired rules from the game or alter existing rules. So if you really think the mercy limit should be increased or removed entirely, by all means, house rule it. I don't give a heck. This applies to all other rules as well. So many people have left comments saying something along the lines of, "I was so invested in this project until he added the Uno dice game rule, and now the entire game is ruined for me, and I couldn't possibly think of playing it. I no longer plan on supporting you, and here's 6 paragraphs on why you should undo all of the hard work you did." Like, dude, what are you even doing here? You're telling me you were on board this whole time through all of the wackiness, and you're going to let one mechanic stop you from enjoying yourself? You do understand what this series is about, right? Combining every version of Uno? If there's a mechanic you don't like in any version of Uno, there is a good chance it'll be added, and that should be expected. If you're not into that concept, feel free to leave. I didn't read the essay you left me anyway. Or better yet, how about you make your own Amalgam? Go on, go ahead. I can't and won't try to stop you. I'm sorry that my game turned out to be a completely toxic and unplayable thing for you. Sorry about this rant, my dudes. Please understand that I'm only directing my frustration towards the people who went out of their way to be rude. The rest of you are awesome, and I'm so thankful to have this supportive and insightful community behind me as I take on this gargantuan task. I definitely couldn't have made it this far without you. This whole thing definitely hasn't discouraged me at all either, don't worry. This is the internet, there's always going to be haters and trolls. I also acknowledge that it's possible for me to make mistakes. I mean, I've made plenty of them in this series already. And when I do make mistakes, I'll do my best to make things right. Just because I make mistakes doesn't mean I'm not putting hours and hours of thought into the Uno Amalgam and all of its little mechanics and intricacies. Thank you all again. Let's move on from this cursed topic and get into the new stuff. Clarification time? Over. Let's get things started with something I didn't believe was real until I first heard about it. The 41st addition to the Amalgam is Uno Flip again, but this time it's much older. 2009 specifically, my personal favorite year. This was also a Target exclusive back in the day, much like some of the best LEGO sets ever created. What makes this version of Uno Flip different from the rest? Well, it doesn't have double-sided cards for one. It also includes a flipping catapult and little flipping Uno Guys registered trademark to be launched out of said catapult. Well, this took a turn into really strange territory. This version of Uno is not in fact a variant of modern Uno Flip. It's actually its own thing, but it shares its name with the modern entry. I guess this one doesn't have the exclamation mark in its name, making it legally distinct? Okay. The gimmick here is the confusingly named Flip card. When you play one of these cards, you get to use the catapult to flip the Uno guy, registered trademark, at another player's crash pad. Each player has a crash pad, by the way. They're basically just a round target that sits in front of you. If you successfully launch the Uno guy, registered trademark, so he hits the crash pad before he hits anything else, you get to give that player one card from your hand. If you miss, nothing happens. This is so absurd. I wish I could say nothing surprises me anymore after the versions of Uno I've already added, but this one is truly baffling. Of course, the catapults, the crash pads, and even the Uno guy, registered trademark, all combine to form a nasty bug that I need to squash. So here's how I plan to implement this mechanic into the Amalgam. I'm going to put the new launch modifier, as I'm calling it, on 8 of the 1 number cards, one of each color. The symbol was on more cards in the original, but they went way overboard in my opinion, since you're doing the same thing every time the symbol is used with no random chance or strategy involved. 8 is more than enough for our case. When you play a card with this modifier, choose another player. Next, choose a card from your hand that you want to get rid of. You ever heard of paper football? You're gonna kick an extra point. That's my solution to this mechanic. The player you chose will be the goalpost, and you'll be the kicker. Balance the card you want to get rid of on its corner, and try and flick the card into the goalpost. If you succeed, the goalpost player adds that card to their hand. If you fail, the card goes back into your hand. Before anyone asks, yes, I tried this, and yes, it works well. But there is a bit of skill involved, so you gotta get good at launching your card. Thankfully, the plastic cards will be able to get whacked with little to no damage as well, so that's yet another reason for the cards to be made of durable, waterproof plastic. It's really a shame I legally can't include the Uno guy, registered trademark. I miss him already. While we're on the topic of waterproof plastic, remember Uno H2O and Uno Splash, which I added in the last episode? What if Mattel were to take these two versions of Uno and compress them together to create something completely new? Sound familiar? That's where the 42nd edition, Uno H2O Splash, came from. The only similarity being the waterproof cards, because this thing is actually quite different mechanically. This version of Uno also contains a bug, lovingly named the Whirlpool. Don't let its appearance fool you though, this is just a slightly altered Magic 8 Ball. Here's how it works. Whenever someone plays a 0, a 2, H2O, get it? Or a splash card, which is just the special card of this version, nothing crazy, the next player in the current turn order must shake the Whirlpool and perform the effect that gets revealed. Here's all of the possible effects of this Magic 8 Ball wannabe. Draw H2O. The player draws until they get a 2, a 0, a blue card, or a wild card. Wave right. The player must show one card to the player on their right. Wave left. Same thing, but on the left. Wipeout. Reverses the turn order, and the player who originally triggered the Whirlpool event must shake the Whirlpool and perform the action it chooses. Draw 3. The player draws 3. Draw 2, the player draws 2. Give 1, the player can give any one card to any other player. And finally, discard 2. The player can discard any 2 cards in their hand in any order. That's a total of 8 randomly chosen possibilities. I think you know where this is going by now. Let's get rid of this bug. I'm going to put the Whirlpool modifier on 8 0 cards and 8 2 cards. There will also be a Wild Whirlpool card. When you play a card with this symbol or modifier, the next player in the turn order rolls the d8 and refers to the instruction manual to determine which of the 8 Whirlpool events I talked about earlier are happening. They perform the actions, and then play resumes. It's as easy as that, everyone. Something that I find funny is if you were to have the real Whirlpool from H2O Splash in front of you, you could break it open and a D8 would be inside. That's just how Magic 8 Balls work after all. So really, we're just freeing the die from its plastic prison. My good deed for the day is done. Let's move on to one of the crossovers of all time. The 43rd edition is Blockas Shuffle, Uno edition. I'll say right now that I've in fact never played Blockas. Sorry, Blockas fans. I don't want to call the Blockas board and pieces a bug, but for the purposes of the Amalgam, they kinda are. All of the unique gimmicks of this game involve manipulating the Blockas board, so I'm going to take some of those unique mechanics and recontextualize them for this non-Blockas, all-Uno card game. First we have the Recycle card. When you play this card, search the discard pile for a card you played previously in the game. Take that card and place it in your hand. Now you have two options. You can either save that card for later, or play it right now as an extra action. This symbol will be placed once on each color. 4 more cards are added. Next is the Warp symbol. When you play this card, choose another player and look at their hand. Take one of their cards out of their hand and play it without triggering the effects of any modifiers or symbols. If the player you chose has no legal matches to make on any discard pile, nothing happens. This one will also be placed once on each color, with 4 more cards getting added. Lastly, we have the double play symbol. When you play this card, you must play a second card on the same discard pile you placed the double play symbol. If you have no matches to make for the second card, nothing happens. Same deal, 1 on each color, 4 more cards. Unfortunately, that's all I'll be adding from Blockas Shuffle Uno Edition. I would have added more, but the entire game is tied to the Blockas board. Blockas Amalgam when? Anyway, if there's one thing in this world that I'm addicted to, it's my projects. But chocolate is a close second. Lucky me, Mattel made the 44th edition, Uno Milk Chocolate Edition. This version of Uno consists of several mini chocolates with Uno numbers and symbols printed on the wrappers. To my knowledge, this plays almost identically to base Uno until you decide to unwrap the chocolates and eat them. I don't plan on making the cards of the Amalgam edible. The words edible and plastic don't really go together. I also don't want to go through the whole health and safety nightmare of including anything edible in the box itself. So what's getting added here? The prize rule. Apparently this version came with a chocolate prize for whoever won the game. So the official game rule for the Amalgam is this. The winner of the game must be given chocolate. That's all. It's the silly things like this that really add a lot of character to the Amalgam, so I appreciate this version. And I'm not just saying that because I love chocolate. Moving right along, we have the 45th edition to the Amalgam, Uno Up Up Down Down. This one is quite special because this version is actually a collaboration with the YouTube group of the same name. I want to offer my congratulations to these dudes on getting their own version of Uno officially produced by Mattel. I don't know how they did it, but it's quite awesome. So Mattel, if you're listening, I wouldn't mind collaborating. I mean, I only made fun of you a few times. You aren't mad about that, right? Please, you're so much better than Hasbro. Anyway, this version has one new mechanic to my knowledge. The Wild Challenge card. In most cases, this just acts like a wild card, but if someone plays a card that would force you to draw cards, and you choose to play the challenge card on top of it, the player who played the draw card against you must draw that many cards instead. And then they need to draw 2 extra cards. This can also be played on top of a stack as well, so this could be devastating. Yet another defensive option, which is always nice. It's going on a wild card. Edition 46 is a strange one. Uno Pocket Pizza Pizza. Uno Pocket Pizza Pizza is a version of Uno that was at one point included with orders at Pizza locations, which apparently is a food chain in Canada. I had to triple check this one was real. It is, lol. And there's also one new mechanic. It's called the Dip into the Deck symbol. I don't know why it's called that considering how the mechanic works, but whatever. When you play this card, you pass one of your cards from your hand to the next player in the turn order. That's it. It's going on a wild card. What a weird Uno, and an even weirder promotion. In fact, edition 47 appears to be part of the same promotion. It's called Uno Pocket Pizza 73. Pizza 73 is yet another pizza chain located in Canada, and it has its own Uno version. Between you and me though, Pizza kinda got the shorter end of the stick because Pizza 73 Uno has more stuff in it. The only thing about it that hasn't already been represented in the Amalgam is the steal a slice symbol. If I'm understanding this mechanic correctly, which I hope I am, when you play this card, you have to steal a real slice of pizza from another player. Then, draw a card from the draw pile and give that card to the player you stole pizza from. I mean, the mechanic works fine on its own if you just give a card from the draw pile to a player of your choice, but if a player happens to be eating pizza while they're playing, then you could use this ability to its full effect. I'll include both versions of the rule I just described in the rules document. On a wild card it goes. Now for edition 48, Uno Extreme. Hey, hold on a second, let me clean my glasses. Hey, this is just Uno Attack again. What a ripoff. Luckily there's a unique card here that synergizes with the D10. The Wild Extreme Hit symbol. When you play this card, you choose another player to rotate the D10 twice, meaning they increase the number on the die by 2. On a wild card it goes. Boom. And while we're talking about different versions of Uno Attack, of which there are many, let's talk about a recent version. The 49th edition to the Amalgam, Uno Attack circa 2020. This one came with customizable wildcards, and one of them was filled in by Mattel, making it an official mechanic. This is also the only original thing from this version, unfortunately. The Wild Hit 4 card is exactly as it sounds. When this card is played against you, you rotate the D10 4 times. Obviously that has a pretty big chance of activating the D10, which can hurt a bit. On a wild card it goes. Okay, those last two were kind of underwhelming. Let's end the video with a bang. Literally. The 50th edition is Bumo. Yet another cameo game published by Mattel that has Uno mechanics in it. It's still a completely different game though. It's not about getting rid of all of your cards. Almost all of the mechanics present in Bumo are already represented in the Amalgam, so I'm only going to add one very significant mechanic. The life system. In Bumo, you get 3 lives that you can lose before you're eliminated from the game. So I'm just going to translate that. I think 3 lives may be a bit overkill, so I'm going to add 16 life cards to the game, 1 for each player. If at any point you're eliminated from the game by, say, the mercy rule for instance, instead of being eliminated, just flip your life card. You're still in the game, and your hand resets. Discard your hand and draw 7 new cards as if it's the start of the game. Now that your life card is flipped though, if you were to be eliminated again, you'd actually be eliminated for the round because the life card isn't there to protect you. This mechanic would prevent you from being eliminated in any other way as well, so perhaps in the future there will be other versions of Uno that have the chance to eliminate you and you'll have at least 1 line of defense. Alright, awesome. Another 10 versions added, another video done. As always, the rules doc and the first episode of the series can be found in the description. The rules will be updated soonish. I'd like to take an extra moment to thank all of you for supporting me, this project, and my channel as a whole. My subscriber count continues to grow, and I could not be happier about that. If you think this project is cool and you want to see more, be sure to join the Amalgamates by subscribing and like the video if you in fact liked the video. I'll see you all in the next one for a very special episode. Bye bye!